Ladies and gentlemen, we're just gonna jump right into it. It's been a minute since we've done a video like this one, right? Hide your kids, hide your wives. Like the video if you love your mama. And just like that, we're gonna get right into it because we got Dr. Steven Greer talking about the ALMOs, the aliens, and the UFOs. Roll it.
The fact of the matter is, the extraterrestrial presence has been saving our bacon for about 80 years, preventing nuclear war and even space objects from striking the Earth. But we have a group of people who have technologies that are targeting those ET objects who are imperiling the whole planet. I'm going to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth. But that gets you banned.
Do you believe that Dr. Steven Greer is speaking facts, the truth, or you think he's a government plant? I want to know your thoughts on it.
Most people don't want to know how dangerous this whole issue is. And I get cut off a lot, even by people in the Congress. They said, we don't want to hear any more about that. But the fact of the matter is, you know, the extraterrestrial presence has been saving our bacon for about 80 years, preventing nuclear war and even space objects from striking the Earth.
Now, this is, of course, we don't know, I cannot prove it or deny that, right? But this one actually triggers a story that I heard, right? And I'm sure you guys heard that too, that at nuclear plants on our planet, at bunch of different nuclear plants, their nukes were disabled right after they saw some lights in the skies, like objects flying in the sky that they thought were UFOs, which means unidentified flying object, right? So we know that, and these were reported by a lot of outlets back when it happened, that yeah, the UFOs showed up and all of a sudden nukes were being disabled left and right, and then they were like, hey man, this is a security concern. So maybe what he's saying that is that the aliens stopped us having nuclear war for 80 years. Maybe it's true, or maybe not.
But we have a group of people who have technologies that are targeting those objects, the ET objects, who are imperiling the whole planet. So it's a very complicated, nuanced problem, and it's the opposite of how it's portrayed in the media and in the corporate media and in the internet search algorithms from Google and elsewhere. So I think it's a very...
It is true that there are certain topics that do get censored, or I should say a lot of topics. There's one that's coming to my mind, which even for me, even for my small channel here, if you're new here, you're OG, welcome back. I appreciate the love. But there's I'm not gonna say the full name, but Project Blue. You know what I'm saying, right? I cannot say. I know there's like a book one, and there's like I'm just talking, trying between, not trying to say it in one sentence and not trying to say it like as a keyword, but let's just say beam. Okay, hopefully you get what I'm saying here. So topics like that do get censored. Now, yes, if I'm trying to be like positive here, optimistic here, maybe they're censoring these topics because they don't want misinformation being spread. I get that, but you know, generally speaking, people are not gonna believe that. Understandably. Why? Because whenever you try to silence somebody, then people start to believe that a lot more. And that's exactly what's been happening right now, right? When you silence certain topics, people tend to believe that more. So it does more harm than good. You know, especially with the thick situation, cannot say more than that. You know, there were conspiracies. Some people were genuinely trying to ask questions, and when you bring up like different perspective to it, different side to it, there were doctors that were speaking against it too, right? So we saw people getting silenced, and then that actually, then the conspiracies grew even more, and people started to believe stuff that was happening. I'm not gonna say more than that, but there's truth to that though. So
big issue, and the people who are on the inside, let's just say the people who are operational now today in these black projects that are being run illegally, but these are guys who got pulled in, maybe they were 18, 20, Green Berets, Special Forces, Delta Force guys. They now realize that they're in a system that is completely corrupt, and they're wanting to have themselves liberated from it. I had a very poignant story last year. I was being driven around in the Southern California area in an armored vehicle. It looked like a Denali, but it's armored. And, the guy who dropped me off at my place, he was in that system, and he said, thank you for what you're doing for those of us stuck on the other side. And
I'll say this: Dr. Steven Greer does sound very believable at times. That there are just few exceptions here and there. We just need more proof. But he sounds genuine to me. But here's the thing that I have been seeing around, and this is kind of true, because people bring this up that, hey, you have been talking about this for how many decades now? 3 decades, 2 decades, right? And if what you're saying is true, why are they letting you speak so openly? Because he is speaking so openly. He doesn't necessarily bring in like pictures. Maybe he did, which I'm unaware. Maybe I'm unaware of that. But maybe he's not bringing those images because maybe he does not have it, or maybe he does, but he don't wanna be in the what's this called, in crosshairs, right? Makes sense. But some people are like, hey, if you have been talking for way too long, if they really wanted, if what you are saying is true, they would silence you. That argument makes sense to me, but another argument is that you cannot ignore it. If you guys have seen his documentaries, Dr. Steven Greer documentaries, even if you're a skeptic, those documentaries are very well put together. I've seen mostly all of them. There's maybe one that I have not seen. There was Cyrus, the Fifth Kind. I believe there was another one he did, right? So yeah, Dr. Steven Greer documentaries, Google that. You're gonna find a bunch of them. Definitely check them out. And the best thing about those documentaries is that he does not show just one person. He does not just bring one person. He brings like hundreds, thousands of people. I'm not even exaggerating. It feels like across all of his documentaries that he produced, he has brought 1,000 different individuals, high-ranking military officers, high-ranking people with credentials, not just like people from the streets, people with credentials, and they are basically agreeing with Dr. Steven Greer, and sometimes they do bring proof as well that yes, the aliens, they are real, that these programs are real. So when you watch his documentaries, even from like a skeptic point of view, he seems very, very genuine though, you know what I mean? But for how long he has been I guess whistleblowing or talking about it, it's been way too long, and nothing big has been coming out. Yes, David Grush thing happened. Some people believe him, some don't. I mean, I totally understand and I respect the idea of, hey, questioning. You want to question, totally makes sense. Even I don't want to live in a society where people are just eating everything up and don't want to question, right? Like, come on, this is a big topic. This is a huge topic. There are certain topics where you're like, whatever, I don't care whether it's real or not. But this one, I get it. Sometimes people want to watch it for entertainment. Even that's how I started watching these types of like videos, and then I'm like, holy crap, like, is it real? Yeah, right. Like you want to question for sure, 110%.
He was referring to he and all the brothers who were in these programs, who some of them been there 30 years now, right? 25, 30 years. And they know now that it's a completely dangerous and corrupt, illegal operation, but they're in it. So, you know, how do you build the bridge to liberate these guys? And with it, the technologies that would save the biosphere, you know, right? So that's, although, you know, I want to talk about this in the Middle East, but we haven't needed oil for decades. So, I mean, all that's going to go the way of all flesh. It's a huge change coming, and it's got to come.
Context, he means like the free energy. Free energy means the type of energy which would require us to not use our fossil fuels, or, for example, energies that would pollute the planet, like oil and all that gas and, you know, stuff like that. And he's saying that we didn't need like to go on a war in the Middle East because yeah, US wanted oil, right? Essentially, they planted crap like that. There were never weapons of mass destruction, okay? There were never any of that, but they went there for oil and crap like that. Look at that UFO sighting, holy crap, right? That's insane. So yes, and what he's saying is that we never needed any of that. We had free energy, which, if that's true, that's big. That is big.
Very quickly now, given the state of the world. I can't speak to the ones that I'd have to know about whom you're speaking, okay? The people who say that, if you look at the hearings last year in Congress that were just these brief events, people like Mr. Brush and others, they don't understand that they can talk about anything related to this subject because the subject has been declared an unconstitutional operation. A priori, there are no non-disclosure agreements or national security oaths that pertain to it. That's the legal foundation of the whole disclosure project, which I actually started in 1993 when I was asked to brief the director of the CIA. It was called Operation.
So you can now talk about it openly? Is that what you're trying to say?
Starlight at that time, and it was
I guess, right?
private.
Yeah.
I'm a trauma doctor, and I was flown up from North Carolina to brief Mr. Clinton's CIA director, and within a few months of him being elected or sworn in. And so, what we decided was once we could absolutely prove that the key people in our government here, as well as United Kingdom and some other countries, Canada, were being lied to or denied access or even threatened for looking into it. At that point, we and our constitutional team of lawyers said these are illegal projects. A priori, you can't enforce the National Security Act on it because you can't enforce the law around an operation that's by definition illegal and not being overseen properly by either the president or the Congress. So at that point, we have told every witness of ours, now the whistleblowers I have understand this, that they can talk about anything. What they filter on, this is an important distinction, is information that isn't related specifically to this issue, that may be associated, that is still top secret, and that would be covered under a non-disclosure agreement. So this gets in the devil's in the details, as always, which people find boring, but I think it's important for people to understand this. The other part of it is that fear. So some people, even on my team, they will talk about a certain amount of information, and then they'll self-censor, not because they can't talk about it, but because they're sort of programmed not to, and they're afraid of consequences for them or their family.
It makes sense, though. Makes sense. There are certain things that you think would get you in problems, so you actively filter yourself.
So in terms of retribution, the other self-censoring thing, and I'm dealing with this a lot with Congress, the senior folks who are like right hand to the Senate Intelligence Committee and people like that, they can only tell their bosses, meaning the chair and co-chairs of these kind of committees, so much before they kind of lose them. One of the problems is it's a little bit like, what is that movie, A Few Good Men, when Jack Nicholson, he's asked, Tom Cruise says, I just want to know the truth. He goes, you can't handle the truth. And goes screams at him like that.
You can't handle the truth. You can't handle.
It's a little bit like that because, if you tell some of these guys who are they're basically, still have training wheels on learning about this issue, and these are senior members of the United States Senate and House, you tell them too much, they just shut down. Or they become afraid. So, we have to be understanding the human limitations of understanding this. And part of my job is to keep pushing that envelope without breaking it. It's hard because I'm holding information and intelligence on this that goes back 34 years now that I've been gathering, 762 whistleblowers that I've debriefed with all their information.
Okay, so my bad, it wasn't like 1,000, but it was 700 something. I guess around the time when he recorded this, maybe he produced another documentary after this one, and then it came closer to 1,000. It was a lot. I should have said it was a lot. So my bad on that one. But 700 something, damn, that's still crazy. That was the point that I was trying to make, though, right? Like if you're a skeptic of him, which is totally fine, though. That's totally understandable. You want to question, absolutely 110%. Okay. That's how cute. 1996, the year that I was born. Crazy, man. Let me know how old are you guys in the comments. I'm 28, pushing 30, man. Becoming a boomer right now. Becoming old. I'm probably the oldest one alive right now from you all. I'm joking, man. Let me know how old are you guys. But now, seriously, if you watch those documentaries, you're gonna find so many insiders, so many high-ranking officials that he brings on that talks about this crap. And then you're like, okay, maybe one guy was lying, maybe 100. Mathematically, it doesn't sound right that 100 people would be lying. But okay, whatever, right? We got 700 plus, he said, right? So let's just say 200 people were lying. But I mean, what about the rest, though? Okay, let's just say 600 of them were lying. Well, let's just say everybody was lying. There gotta be at least mathematically, logically, there's gotta be one of them that was speaking the truth. You feel what I'm saying? Or were everybody lying? That's one thing that you cannot digest, and this clip is just crazy. You saw like crop circle and then a UFO flying. Crazy, man. Holy shit. Back in the days, yeah, crop circles were like super big. The British Army attempts to intercept the orb as well. So this one is from 2000, so around like 8 o'clock. It's still okay, the sun hasn't gone down, so 8:12, so July 18th, okay, 2000, near like a crop circle. Did it just made like a crop circle? That's crazy. Crop circle used to be massive too. I don't know if they pop up now, or maybe we lost interest. That's why we don't report them that much, maybe.
How much do you say to whom? And I know that this sort of self-censoring happens with these witnesses. Like, I know that Mr. Brush was asked about, have people been killed? The congressman asked that question. I had previously briefed and assured him I know people who have been. And Grush says, well, I can't talk about that. We have to be in a SCIF, which is a secure compartmented information facility where top secret information. That's not true. He could have talked about it, and he should have. But he's getting some very bad advice by some attorneys right now. But and who don't understand the bigger picture. I mean, you really have to go back and unpack this for a long time. But you also have to have what I call inverse witnesses. Inverse witnesses are the ones who should know about this, who don't. They're more important than the ones who know about it, because that's how you prove the operation's illegal. I mean, if you're the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency or CIA or the president or chairs of these key committees, and you're not told anything or you're threatened when you inquire, that is proof that the operation is illegal. And that then liberates everyone who wants to talk about this. But you have to have that, fund of knowledge and the proof, and I have it in my archive. Here are the meetings that were had, this person was denied.
Can a brother perhaps get to see it? Can a brother get to see it, man?
At access. Everyone in the world now knows that Admiral Wilson, who is head of Intelligence Joint Staff, we briefed at the Pentagon, and then he was threatened and was shut down, notwithstanding his high position to be the main source of intelligence for the whole Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? I mean, and he was told, you don't have a need to know. And this is the guy in charge of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So when you can prove this, then you make this conclusion. If you don't know what I just said, you're still wondering, what the landscape is here. So I think for that reason, a lot of those whistleblowers censor themselves because they are still drinking the false narrative and the Kool-Aid.
But here's my, okay, now I get that, but here's my question though. Let's just say they have physical evidence. Physical evidence meaning like picture or a video that's like really crazy that we have not seen before, and that clearly shows the existence of these creatures. ET, aliens, ALMLs, whatever you want to call it. Would they be allowed, or can they show it? Because David Grush claimed he has the evidence, and what he's now saying that he can talk about it, I guess. He did not talk about showing it, but he said he can talk about it without filtering himself, without keeping the evidence to himself. He can talk about it, but he chose to not because he got bad advice from attorneys and all that. Maybe he's afraid of his life and all that. Makes sense, though, makes sense. But what he's saying is that he can talk about it. Okay, let's say he can talk about it. Can he show us the evidence if he wanted? And if he showed the evidence, would he be fine? Fine means he stays alive and they don't come for him. I want to know that. And can a brother perhaps get to see like more evidence and more proof
of their training under national security?
It's funny to say evidence when I'm playing like clips like that of the UFOs. There's so much of that, but it's never enough. You know what I mean? It's never enough, man. It's never enough. I know what you guys want to see. I know what I want to see. I want to see the ALMLs though. I want to see like the actual beings, because I feel like that we've had like pictures of them, but it's never really clear. We hear testimony. For example, like the thought that's running in my mind right now is that school in Zimbabwe, like decades ago, where kids saw like beings, tall beings, and even to this day, decades later, they still hold that memory, and they're like, hey, what we said back then is still true to this day. So, you know, stories like that, I'm inclined to believe them. I'm inclined to believe that. For example, the guy that said that he was abducted, he done like a podcast with Joe Rogan as well. They made a movie on him as well. Yeah, his name is not coming up in my mind, but seems like a credible case. He said that story decades ago, and he still is saying that. Guys like Bob Lazar too, right, claimed to have worked on some UFO crafts at Area 51 decades ago. He still is saying that, and he doesn't really go out of his way like crazy to promote stuff. He said it back then, he would say here and there, and now it's like we don't even know where he's at right now, right? So he's like, yeah, so I'm inclined to believe stories like that, but still, it's never enough. Can we get to see pictures of these beings? You know what I mean?
Provisions and what are called OPSECs, Operation Security. You know, here's what you can say, here's what you can't.
Thank you for subscribing.
But you have to understand this deeper context to be able to then realize what you can and cannot say. Well, I mean, I think the secrecy on this probably goes back to the early 20th century. You know, it's funny, when Mr. Trump was president, I put in his briefing document, the very first image was a dissection of a ET on a slab with some intel and military people there, with some doctors from 1922 to 28 is when it's been dated.
Exactly, just like, I want to see pictures, brother. I want to see pictures.
And we got this from a very interesting series of events. So I believe that there has been some degree of classification on this going back to the late 1800s, early 1900s. But the big action started, obviously, once we detonated the first atomic bomb and the ETs realized that we were an existential threat to life on Earth as well as potentially to them. That's when the modern era started. The whole thing went off the rails in terms of supervision in about 1956 to 60, when Eisenhower was shoved aside. So President Eisenhower, you know, the reason he gave that famous speech when he left office, in large part was this issue, although he didn't acknowledge it. He said, you know, beware the military-industrial complex. And a lot of people were going, well, this is a two-term Republican president who had 5 stars back then. And a hero, why would he be saying this about the military-industrial complex when his whole career has been military, right? Is because he saw the power that the corporate end of this, let's call it the fascistic corporate moneyed interest, did to take over the interests of the people and the United States government, where he was being pushed aside and he was being denied access. And if you don't take my word for this, we have a witness who was an Army communications specialist, or Army Signal Corps used to be called in the White House, who knew Eisenhower, and Eisenhower directly told him this is what had happened to him, and this was in 59 and 60. So we know that somewhere between the mid-50s and 60, Eisenhower lost control of these programs. They went deep black, illegal, and they have never been under proper supervision since. So you can track it. I've been able to track it all the way back, almost, 65 to 70 years. Yeah. You don't go through interstellar space and can't navigate an electrical storm in Roswell, New Mexico. My friends that are pilots can navigate an electrical storm in New Mexico in a F-18 or Airbus 321. They were downed. These objects were down. They were ET craft that were struck with a type of electromagnetic weapon, early one in the mid to late 40s, and they were developed based on the work that Tesla had done on scalar electromagnetic systems and what they learned about EMPs, electromagnetic pulses that go out when you detonate an atomic bomb. Those got weaponized. The early ones were not very accurate, but they were good enough to hit the ones that downed in New Mexico.
No, I'm trying to believe stories like that because we've advanced like crazy in the last century, right? And there's so much of the technology that we possess now, and you have to wonder, like, how did we get that much so fast? And of course, the conspiracies are that a lot of the technology has been given to us or we obtained through reverse engineered programs with like the UFOs and all that. I mean, some of that gotta be true, not everything for sure. But guys, this is the last episode that we've done. If you like conspiracies like that, podcast style, discussion like videos, check out this video on the screen. This is the last episode that we've done, and I'll see you right there. Or you can check out the video on the left with tons of clips that are strange and mysterious.